Okay, here's some more. We're going to do a couple things this pass. I'm going to bring in, if you remember, we worked on this study with some dioxazine purple and quin burnt orange and all the lovely things that mixes that those two colors will make. So I'm going to bring in some dioxazine purple and quin burnt orange for the darkest darks of my pit. And you may have heard me say, I'm not sure why I wasn't doing that before. Going with indigo was another way to just get really dark, but I'm going to try the purple. It seems to have a little bit more life potentially in it, a little more red, truth be told. And the other thing I'm going to do this first, is move my leg, and then the last thing I'm going to do is crack myself up on these videos. No, I'm going to, you can tell here that where I had really sort of a stark outliney kind of look, that I was able to kind of coax that into a more of a gradation around here. But I want that a little bit stronger. So I'm gonna come around with my this is my very small #2 Robert Simmons white sable, and I'm gonna try to get a really thin outline. And one of the ways I'm going to do that is to, when I load my brush, I'm going to load it in a way that, oh, you probably can't see that, but it sort of flattens it out. I'm trying to, I'm loading it so when it comes up, it's sort of like a little flat brush, and I'm going to try it more like a calligraphy tool. And I'm going to try to just paint with that flat calligraphy type tool. Around this. I'm going to keep sort of spinning around, so I'm not sure how well this is going to stay in camera, but let's see. That wasn't very clean at all. The thing about doing long lines in watercolor, long skinny lines, is that depending on what brush you're using, it will tend to run out of paint. If you're trying to really sort of have accurate control over where it goes. And to maybe state the obvious, it's just another sort of motor skill that that I, for one, could use more practice at. But what I'll be doing is a similar thing to what I did before, and that I'll come back with another layer of some either just water or some greenish yellows, and paint those up to this dark edge, and try to get a gradation transition that is very subtly graded but ends with, you know, almost black. So I'm sort of going over this and not sure if I'm making it better or worse. A little bit of both, I think. But I'm going to leave that like that for now, and this mix, by the way, I don't know, it was phthalo green blue shade and some peacock blue. So kind of phthalo green blue shade and phthalo blue green shade is what the peacock blue really is. But okay, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do down here for the values wise, but I will be sort of taming down the white outliney stripe, and just I'll show you how I'm going to do that a little bit later. But for now, let's do the another pass on the pit. And one thing about what I'm going to do is, for reflected light that comes in, well, all sorts of different forms, but on a spherical form, which this is some sort of spherical thing, will bounce back in and make the value a little bit lighter down here in the lower left. And it's tempting to leave that color down there almost the same as in the part that's in direct light, but indeed it's always going to be quite a bit darker than that. But it's a bit of an optical illusion, and that what's really going to make this area appear lighter is by making it even that much more darker around it. So at least that's my theory. No, that's what I'm sort of thinking about with this. And I am going to just start out with clean water over the whole thing, because I'm really trying to control where everything goes at this point. So I'm just going to wet the paper with a real light touch so that I don't make it stripy. I don't know that I'm being successful with that, because I can tell I'm sort of picking up some. But what I am going to do is reprimand myself for not having some paint already mixed up. But here is some Quin burnt orange. There's a little bit of dioxazine purple over there. First I'm going to just see see about getting darker, which is the Quin Burnt Orange. Well, I suppose that there's, yeah, like I said, I'm going to try to get it really subtly darker. Just where it meets up with the avocado. Can lay in a little bit of color and then subtly lift a little bit back with a drier brush. So it just gives it, strengthens up that line. But let's see, where was I? I was wanting to really get some even darker mixes here. I think that's on camera. But just Quin Burnt Orange and Dioxazine Purple. So the paper's wet, so everything I'm dabbing in is blending. Let's hope this is still wet enough over here to... That's kind of fun. Oops, I almost went over. That is mostly straight dioxazine purple. Now that I'm tapping in here, leaning back to and squinting to kind of see, checking my values to see if this is really kind of making sense or not. It's looking a little splotchy, but and I sort of want the reflected light part to be there, and that's a little too it's drying a little bit there, so I'm going to try to bring in a little bit of mostly water, but I have a little bit of really light brownish color, and I'm going to come back here. That didn't do a darn thing. I might get a... just going to try to bring in a little bit more of moisture and paint into this reflected light area, just so I can get it to blend a little bit more. But hopefully you see the point I was trying to make, and that it looks lighter, not because it's the same value as the stuff up here, but it looks lighter because stuff of the darker color around it is telling you more about how light it is. I'm gonna so I have a pretty dry brush right here because I'm gonna try to just kind of blend that outline without bringing in a bunch of water. Ooh, this is that was exciting. Anyways, I think that's good for that. Yeah, I am trying to sort of lean back and look at it and think, both looking at the shape of the darker paint that I've introduced, seeing if it seems to make sense in rounding this form out even more. I think that's a great time to let it be. And since I'm having so much fun, I think I'm gonna try to make this the outer skin part that much more reinforced. I did a little bit of blending the background into it to sort of tone it down. That was fun in the moment. I'm not sure that I'm sold that that's really how I want it to look. So I'm going to mix some dioxazine purple with phthalo green blue shade to really get almost black. And I'm going to kind of do a similar thing. I'm going to move this off camera. Do a similar thing with the outer peel part. And once again, I'm trying to get a really thin outline, and it seems like it's a little bit easier if the paint's a little bit thicker to load my brush in a way that makes it so it's acting a little bit like a flat calligraphy nib. Leave that part like it is just for fun. I might leave that slightly different. my inner critic right now is going crazy. Screaming at me that I can't even, well, here's a little too much self-disclosure, but can't even really paint a straight line. And while that's somewhat true, that's okay. I'm having fun with what I'm doing. I will try to get it. So there's definitely a somewhat graceful flow to it. Even if I'm doing it in short, small sections. And I'll show you what I'm going to do later in another one. But I'm going to, like I said, sort of tone down this. I'm having one of those. I wonder if I could sneak in a little bit more. And, oh sure, why not? I'm going to come back in and darken the cast shadow on that the pit is casting. And like I did last time, I had to be really careful because I'm sort of going up against, I am going up against a shape that's still wet. So if I want to keep my edges crisp and clean, then I'm going to have to be careful there. But let's see, I'm going to mix up a little bit of I'm kind of thinking about a watery peacock blue, mostly peacock blue, a little bit of phthalo green. But this is something that it's sort of a little bit scary because as long as I make it watery, it'll be glazy, so it'll interact with the color that's already there and won't be this exact color. At least I don't think so. But here, let's do this. Are you the right brush? Sure. You know, doing this and sort of avoiding touching these edges can give you this little lighter area outline look, which I usually don't leave like that. I'll come back in and sort of do that calligraphy thing that I did with the outer peel. Down here, I'm gonna try to get even a little bit more color, but that is a little bit too much water. Gonna shift to my smaller brush, get some of that same color. And what I'm going to do is try to tip my paper so that, ooh, that's still watery. That's too watery. I want to darken it a little bit more closer to the pit. in a graded sort of fashion still, and darkest sort of right beneath the pit. There's a metaphor in there somewhere. Things are often darkest when you're at the bottom of the pit. You saw me tipping my paper around. I am a big proponent of that, to try to make sure I get dark color where I want dark color, because if I always just left it tipped up, darker color is not going to want to keep going in a... Well, I can elaborate more, but I just grabbed some of that even darker green. It had actually a little bit of purple in it. Lean back and squint to make sure I'm getting it to be how I want. I'll try to do more of a dry brush thing for this edge here. Not dry brush, but I'm not sure if that's working, but I want it to make sense that this is a cast shadow over this dark skin part. So I'll probably come back in here and make sure that this line reads as not stopping right there, but continuing on. But yeah, I'm liking that. I'm just going to try to clean up this edge one tiny skosh more. Okay. He said, I do encourage you to sort of push the value contrast. If you were just looking at this straight, you might think that shadow is mostly one color, but there's a lot of things going on in there. I feel like I lost the spirit of that curve. Okay, really. Except, yep. Check it out. Check those out. I'll do more. Okay.